You know that moment when you realize the people who are supposed to protect your family are actually the ones hurting them? Yeah, that was the day everything changed for me. It started on a quiet summer afternoon in Maple Creek Estates, one of those suburban neighborhoods that looks perfect on the outside. Perfect lawns, perfect smiles, and a homeowners association that thought they ran the world. My niece, Lily, had just turned 16. She was sweet, quiet, and loved helping her aunt with gardening. She'd come to stay with me and my wife for a few weeks during her school break. The weather was hitting the high 90s, so like any normal teenager, she wore jean shorts and a simple tank top to walk our dog. Nothing inappropriate, nothing rebellious, just a kid being a kid. But to Karen Dempsey, our HOA president, it was apparently a violation of community decency standards. Yeah, that's a real quote. She actually wrote that in her HOA report. I was trimming the hedges when I heard shouting from the street. At first, I thought Lily might have dropped something or the dog got loose. Then I saw Karen, platinum hair, sunglasses too big for her face, HOA clipboard in hand, standing toe-to-toe with Lily. Those shorts are not appropriate for walking around this neighborhood, she barked, waving her clipboard like a sword. Lily looked confused. I'm just walking, Max, she said softly. Karen stepped closer, voice rising. You people think the rules don't apply to you because you're renters. This is a family community. Renters? That made my blood boil. We owned that house, outright. I was done watching her bully a 16-year-old. I walked toward them, my voice calm but firm. Karen, that's enough. She turned to me, her lips curling. This is an HOA matter, Mark. You should have received the dress code notice. I didn't, I said. Because it doesn't exist. Before I could finish, she pulled out her phone. Fine. If you won't enforce community standards, I'll call security. Security. In a gated neighborhood where the worst crime was an overgrown lawn. 5 minutes later, a local patrol car pulled up. One of those part-time private officers contracted by the HOA. The officer, a young guy named Paul, looked unsure as Karen started, ranting about indecent exposure and community guidelines. Paul glanced at Lily, a 16-year-old holding a leash. Then back at Karen, you could tell he didn't want to be there. Then Karen snapped, Arrest her! She's disrespecting me and trespassing on community grounds. Paul hesitated. Ma'am, this is her uncle's property. She's not a resident, Karen shouted. You have to detain her! Before I could step in, Karen grabbed Lily's arm, hard, and shoved her against the side of the patrol car. The sound of metal and a frightened gasp made my heart drop. Hey, get your hands off her! I roared, rushing forward. Paul jumped between us, his hand hovering near his taser, yelling for everyone to calm down. Lily was crying, her knees scraped from the pavement. Karen stood there, breathing hard, like she'd just won some twisted competition. That's when I noticed it, my security camera blinking red from across the yard. Every second of this insanity was being recorded. I took Lily inside and called the sheriff's office, not the HOA's fake security, the real police. When the deputies arrived, I handed them the footage. They didn't say much, but I saw the look on their faces when they watched Karen grab a teenager and slam her into a car. By the next morning, the video had spread around the neighborhood Facebook group. Half the residents were furious. The other half defended her, calling it overblown. But then came the twist none of us expected. Karen filed a restraining order against my niece, claiming Lily had physically attacked her. Yeah. The woman who assaulted a teenager was now playing the victim. I called my attorney, a sharp civil rights lawyer named Andrea Fields. Mark, she said after watching the footage, this isn't just assault, it's abuse of authority and possibly defamation. We filed countercharges within 48 hours. What Karen didn't know was that her security camera footage had already been subpoenaed by the sheriff's office and that the HOA board meetings were under live recording by city order due to a previous complaint. 2 weeks later, court day arrived. Lily was terrified, but she stood tall. The courtroom was packed. Neighbors, reporters, even a few HOA board members pretending to be neutral. Karen walked in wearing a white suit, acting like she was the star of a reality show. She smiled, waving to the cameras, convinced she was untouchable. Then, Judge Reynolds, an older man with a reputation for hating frivolous HOA disputes, entered. Everyone stood. Let's proceed, he said. Karen's lawyer began spinning the story, painting Lily as a disrespectful minor who lunged aggressively at an HOA official. Karen nodded dramatically, dabbing fake tears with a tissue. Then it was Andrea's turn. "Your Honor," she said, "we have live surveillance footage from multiple angles, including the HOA's own public stream." The judge leaned forward. "You're saying this was broadcast live?" "Yes, sir," Andrea replied. "The HOA board requires live-streamed footage for transparency, footage that shows exactly what happened." Karen's face went pale. Andrea pressed play. The courtroom filled with the sound of Karen's voice shouting, "Arrest her! She's disrespecting me," followed by the sickening thud of Lily hitting the police car. The room went silent. The judge turned slowly toward Karen. "Mrs. Dempsey," he said, his voice cold, "were you aware that you were being recorded?" Karen stammered. I was enforcing rules." The judge raised a hand. "Rules do not authorize physical assault, nor do they override state law. This court will not tolerate abuse of authority under the guise of community standards." Lily started to cry. "Time from relief," the judge ordered. Karen's immediate arrest for assault and false reporting. As the bailiff escorted her out, she screamed, "You'll regret this! You all will!" The HOA board resigned within a week. Karen's husband filed for divorce 2 months later after the footage aired on local news. As for Lily, she's stronger than ever. She volunteers now, helping teach young women about their rights and standing up against bullies. Me? I replaced the HOA sign at the neighborhood entrance with something better, a carved oak plaque that reads, "Respect is not a rule, it's a choice." When Karen Dempsey was escorted out of that courtroom, handcuffed and shouting like a cornered animal, I thought the nightmare was finally over. But I underestimated the kind of damage an HOA Karen can cause, even from behind bars. The next week, I woke up to find our mailbox stuffed with anonymous letters. "You embarrassed our community. Hope you're proud of ruining a woman's life." Some even called Lily a liar, as if a 16-year-old girl would fake bruises for attention. I started keeping every single note, every threat, every whispered conversation that reached my doorstep. Because if there's one thing I learned from years in construction management, it's that paper trails win wars. Lily was trying her best to move on, but the anxiety showed. She'd flinch at the sound of tires screeching. She avoided walking Max alone. She was scared of any car that looked like a patrol vehicle. So I made her a promise. No one in this neighborhood would ever make her feel unsafe again. That night, I opened my laptop and filed an official civil petition with the county, a formal motion to dissolve Maple Creek Estates HOA on grounds of corruption, intimidation, and misconduct. Most people don't realize it, but a homeowners association is a corporation. That means it can be sued, audited, and dismantled piece by piece if you can prove abuse of power. Andrea, my lawyer, thought I was crazy at first. "Mark, this is going to be messy," she said. "I don't care," I told her. "I'm done with people who think power means permission." Over the next month, we built our case like we were wiring a high-voltage system. Carefully, methodically, with no room for short circuits. We gathered statements from half the neighborhood. Turns out Lily wasn't Karen's first victim. She'd fined one veteran $400 for flying an American flag without proper approval. She'd forced a widow to remove her wind chimes because they were too loud. She'd even called animal control on a blind man's service. Dog, all of it. Documented, dated, and submitted. Meanwhile, the HOA's vice president, a man named Richard Hale, tried to rally what was left of the board. He sent out mass emails painting Karen as a dedicated leader under stress. But when the county prosecutor announced that Karen would be facing 3 felony charges, assault, false reporting, and abuse of position, even Richard went quiet. The hearing for our HOA dissolution came 6 weeks later. The community center was packed. You could feel the tension in the air, like static before a thunderstorm. Andrea stood beside me, calm as ever. "Remember," she said, "you're not fighting them. You're standing up for everyone who never could." The board sat across the room, 4 remaining members in pressed suits, trying to look confident. But I saw their eyes dart toward the reporters in the back. The world was watching. The county commissioner began, "Mr. Thompson, you filed a petition claiming systemic misconduct within the Maple Creek Estates Homeowners Association. Please present your case." I took a deep breath. For years, This HOA has used fear and intimidation to control residents. They've issued illegal fines, violated privacy, and I clicked the projector remote. A photo of Lily, bruised and tear-streaked, appeared on the screen, and physically assaulted a 16-year-old child over a pair of denim shorts. Gasps rippled through the room. Andrea took over, presenting the video evidence, the fake violation letters, and even Karen's emails, which we'd legally obtained through discovery. In them, she'd bragged about keeping the neighborhood pure and removing undesirable residents. When it was Richard's turn to speak, he tried to spin it. "We can't be held accountable for one person's mistake," he said. "Karen's gone. The HOA should continue under new leadership." The commissioner adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Hale, were you aware of Mrs. Dempsey's prior complaints and actions?" Richard hesitated. "Well, she was passionate." "Passionate?" Andrea snapped. "She falsified police reports, extorted residents, and assaulted a teenager, all under your board's supervision." The room erupted. People who'd stayed silent for years finally spoke up, shouting, crying, testifying. The retired vet, the widow, the blind man with his service dog. By the end, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. When the commissioner called for a vote to dissolve the HOA, it passed unanimously. Maple Creek Estates was officially free. You'd think that would be the end. But life has a way of rewarding the patient. A few months later, I received a letter from the county's restitution office. Karen's assets had been seized to pay her legal debts, and part of that included her house. The same house where she'd hosted HOA parties and bragged about cleaning up the neighborhood. I bought it at auction for less than half its value. We turned it into a community youth center, a safe space for teens to study, volunteer, and learn their rights. The first mural Lily painted on the wall read, "No one is above kindness." The news picked up the story. Teen assault leads to HOA shutdown and community rebirth. It went viral. We even got letters of support from other neighborhoods fighting their own corrupt HOAs. The night before Lily went back home, she came into my office. "Uncle Mark," she said softly, "I was so scared that day, but now I'm glad it happened." I looked at her, surprised. "Glad? Yeah," she smiled. "Because you showed me that people can fight back and win." That hit harder than anything. I've seen a lot in my life. Good people broken by bad systems, power used to crush instead of protect. But standing there with her, I realized something simple. Revenge doesn't have to destroy. Sometimes it rebuilds. A few weeks later, Judge Reynolds sent a handwritten note to my house. Just one line. "Justice is what happens when courage meets truth." I framed it on my office wall. Right beneath it hangs the new neighborhood sign, the same one I carved myself from reclaimed oak. It reads, Maple Creek, a community built on respect, not control. And every time I see kids playing near the old HOA office, now a reading room with Lily's mural shining bright, I remember that day in court, the day a judge watched the truth live, and the whole world saw what power really looks like when it belongs to the right people. It's strange how quiet a neighborhood can be after chaos ends. For the first time in years, Maple Creek Estates sounded like what it was supposed to be. A home. No shouting. No warning letters taped to doors. No violation notices fluttering in mailboxes like threats. Just the hum of lawnmowers, the laughter of kids, and the rhythm of life finding its peace again. Karen Dempsey's name was still whispered in grocery stores and barbershops, but it was fading, like a storm moving offshore. Her sentencing had been public, streamed live like some twisted echo of her own arrogance. When the judge asked if she had anything to say before sentencing, Karen didn't apologize. She just stared straight ahead, her voice cold and flat. "I did what I thought was right for this community." The judge's reply was calm, surgical. "And now the community will decide what's right for you." 18 months in county jail, 5 years of probation, and mandatory anger management courses. It wasn't vengeance, it was balance. A few weeks after the sentencing, Lily and I visited the youth center again. The old HOA building had been transformed. Soft yellow walls, bookshelves where complaint files used to be, and a mural of wildflowers wrapping around the windows. "Uncle Mark," Lily said, running her fingers over the paint. "It's weird. This place used to scare me," I nodded. "That's the thing about fear. It hates light. You just gave it too much color to survive." She laughed, but there was still something heavy in her eyes. The kind of weight you only see in someone who's learned too early how cruel people can be. A month later, I got a letter from a neighboring town, Cedar Ridge. Their residents had seen our story and wanted help dismantling their toxic HOA. I agreed, thinking it would just be advice, a few calls, maybe some documents, but it became more than that. Within 6 months, 5 neighborhoods across the county had followed our lead. They replaced their HOAs with open councils, run by residents instead of power-hungry committees. It wasn't just a victory, it was a movement. Local news started calling it the Maple Creek model. I just called it justice finding its echo, but sometimes justice circles back in unexpected ways. One afternoon, I was closing up the youth center when a car pulled into the lot. A modest sedan, clean, quiet. Out stepped a woman I hadn't seen in over a year. Karen's husband, Derek, had left her long before the trial ended, but now it was her. Karen stood there, thinner, her hair dull, eyes tired. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked like guilt trying to breathe again. "I need 5 minutes," she said softly. Every part of me wanted to tell her to leave, but something in her voice, and not pride, not pity, just human weakness. So I nodded. We sat on the bench outside, the same spot where she once screamed at a delivery driver for parking too close to her lawn. "I lost everything," she said. "The house, my friends. Even my son won't talk to me. I just wanted things to be perfect." I stared at her. "At what cost, Karen?" She looked down. "I don't know. I just didn't want this neighborhood to change. I thought keeping order would make me feel safe. Instead, I made everyone feel small. For the first time, I didn't see the monster who hurt my niece. I saw a broken person trying to understand her own wreckage. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she whispered. "I just wanted you to know I was wrong." The sun dipped low, painting the sky in soft amber, the kind of color that forgives the day even when it's been cruel. "Karen," I said quietly, "forgiveness isn't something I give. It's something you have to earn, one good thing at a time." She nodded, tears glinting like tiny mirrors. Then she walked away. No more threats, no more entitlement, just silence. Months later, the county invited Lily and me to an awards ceremony. They were recognizing residents who'd made outstanding contributions to civic reform. I didn't think we deserved it. We hadn't done anything heroic, just refused to stay quiet. But when Lily walked onto that stage, her hair tied back, her voice steady as she said, "No one should ever be afraid of where they live," I realized that maybe, just maybe, we'd built something that would last. They gave us a plaque, but it's the letter that mattered more. A mother from Cedar Ridge wrote, "Because of your story, my daughter spoke up against her HOA president who was harassing her. The police took it seriously this time. Thank you." That letter stays pinned above my desk, next to Judge Reynolds' note about courage and truth. One evening, I found Lily out by the oak tree at the edge of the property, the one we'd planted after the HOA fell. Its trunk was thicker now, branches reaching toward the fading sun. "You know," I said, "when I was your age, I thought grown-ups had everything figured out." She smiled. "They don't?" I laughed. "Not even close. We just learn how to pretend better." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "You didn't pretend. You fought for me." I looked at her. This kid who'd seen the worst of people and still managed to find the good in the world. "Maybe," I said softly, "you fought for me too." The breeze rustled through the branches, carrying the sound of laughter from the youth center. Somewhere inside, a guitar strummed, and someone started singing off-key. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. A year to the day after Karen's sentencing, I got a letter with no return address. Inside was a photo of Karen in a work release program, planting trees along the highway. On the back, written in small, uneven letters, trying to do one good thing at a time. For the first time, I smiled when I saw her name, because maybe that's what redemption really looks like. Not dramatic, not public, just a quiet act of repair in a world that's already moved on. Today, Maple Creek isn't a gated community anymore. There are no fines, no warning letters, no power-hungry committees. Just people. Neighbors who share food, watch each other's pets, and rebuild fences together when storms roll in. Lily runs the youth center now. She's studying law, says she wants to specialize in community rights. Every time I see her walking past that mural, I feel something I can't quite name. Maybe pride, maybe peace, Maybe both. As for me, I still live in the same house, still mow my own lawn, still sit on that porch at sunset with Max at my feet. And sometimes, when I hear laughter echoing through the street, I whisper to myself, that's the sound of freedom. Because in the end, it wasn't the lawsuit or the judge or the media that beat Karen's tyranny. It was truth. And truth, once it finds its voice, never goes quiet again. It's been 3 years since that day. The day everything changed. When the HOA crumbled, when the court cameras stopped rolling, when the noise finally faded into something like peace. Time has a strange way of healing, not all at once, not perfectly, but in quiet, patient layers. And in those layers, new life takes root. The neighborhood that once lived under fear now hums with its own rhythm. Children ride their bikes down the very street where police once parked their cruisers, their laughter echoing against fresh-painted mailboxes. No one counts the length of the grass anymore or measures fence heights with tape. Every Saturday morning, you can smell coffee and cinnamon rolls drifting from the community center, the same building that used to hold those awful HOA meetings. Now it's the Maple Creek Unity Hall. A handmade wooden sign hangs above the door. Built by the people, for the people. Inside, the walls are covered with photos, smiling faces, volunteer projects, kids' drawings. Lily's picture is there too, in her law school hoodie, holding a clipboard and a grin that could light a room. She started an internship last summer, working with the county legal aid department. Her specialty? Community rights and abuse of authority cases. One afternoon, I sat in the park where the old oak tree once stood. The one that used to mark the boundary between my yard and Karen's. It was gone now, of course, but in its place stood a younger tree, planted during the neighborhood's Reformation ceremony. Its plaque read, "For everyone who stood tall when it mattered most." I ran my hand along the bark, rough but alive, and smiled. The past doesn't disappear. It just learns to coexist with the present. Every once in a while, I still get messages from people who watch the trial online. A man from Oregon who said his HOA threatened his disabled mother for having a ramp. A single mum from Texas whose HOA tried to fine her for kids' chalk drawings on the sidewalk. They all say the same thing. Your story gave us courage. And every time I read those words, I realized that what happened here, the pain, the fight, the fear, it wasn't wasted. It became a blueprint for standing up when silence is easier. Then came something I never expected. One morning, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photograph of a quiet garden behind a correctional facility. And there, kneeling among rows of newly planted flowers, was Karen Dempsey. Her hair was shorter, streaked with grey, her hands muddy but steady. On the back of the photo, in simple handwriting, "For Lily, thank you for teaching me what strength looks like." I sat there for a long time, staring at it. There was no sarcasm, no pride, just sincerity, the kind of thing that only comes when someone's learned humility the hard way. I didn't know if Lily should see it, but that night when she came by for dinner, I slid the photo across the table. She stared at it for a moment, her jaw tightening, then softening. "She looks different," she said quietly. "People can change," I replied. She nodded, still looking at the photo. "I hope she does." We didn't talk about it again, but I could see something lift off her shoulders that night. Not forgiveness exactly, but closure. Summer came early that year, the kind where the air hums with warmth and the evenings glow orange long after sunset. One night, the entire neighborhood gathered for the first annual Freedom Picnic. Families brought food, kids played tag, and someone set up a projector to play a movie on the side of the community hall. Halfway through, I saw Lily on stage holding the microphone, her voice clear and calm. "We used to live under rules written by fear," she said. "Now we live by respect. Not because we were forced to, but because we chose to." Applause rippled through the crowd. Old Bill wiped a tear from his cheek, pretending it was from the smoke of the grill. I just stood there, proud and quiet. Later that night, as the stars came out, Lily found me sitting under the new oak tree again. "You know," she said, "every time I walk past this tree, I think about how it started. The yelling, the fight, the handcuffs, and how it all ended with this." I looked at her. "It ended because you refused to be silent," she smiled. "Maybe it's not the ending, though. Maybe it's the start of something bigger." She was right. A year later, Lily passed the bar exam. Her first case? A teenager in another town being harassed by a local board for dress code violations. Sounded painfully familiar. She won, and when she called me that night, her voice was full of joy, and something else, peace. "Uncle Mark," she said, "I used what you taught me. Keep the facts straight, stay calm, and let the truth do the heavy lifting." I laughed. "You just proved that justice doesn't skip generations." Sometimes I drive past the courthouse where everything began. It's quieter now too. No reporters, no flashing cameras, just echoes of a story that outgrew its own headlines. When I walk through Maple Creek, people wave, not because they're required to, but because they want to. And that's when I realize the real victory wasn't in winning the lawsuit. It was in reclaiming what the HOA tried to take from us: community. A few months ago, I received one last letter. This one wasn't from Karen or a neighbor or a lawyer. It was from the judge, Reynolds himself. He wrote, "In all my years on the bench, I've seen thousands of cases where power crushed fairness. Yours was one of the few where fairness fought back and won. Remind your niece that real justice isn't about punishment. It's about restoration." That letter sits framed beside the photo of the old oak tree, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Now, when the evening breeze moves through the new oak's branches, it sounds almost like applause. Soft, endless, forgiving. Maybe it's just the wind, or maybe it's something deeper. The sound of a place that finally remembered what kindness feels like. And every time I hear it, I whisper to the night, "We didn't just win a case, we reclaimed our home." The end.